Transmitting to you from Old Heart Radio.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. That's right, this is another episode of Coffee and Contemplation. I'm your host, Old Heart. Had a frog in my throat. I'm Old Heart. You know me, or you don't, and that's okay. I don't need you to know me necessarily. I just need you to keep listening to the podcast. And if you're not listening to the podcast, then you're not hearing me say this, which is a whole bunch of fucking crazy inception. I don't need to think about this early in the morning. Either way, like I said, this is Coffee and Contemplation. I'm sitting down here with my cup of coffee. I have, quick chance to ripen up my coconut before I have to go off for the day, and I just thought, might as well do it right now, right here, with all of you lovely folks. Either way, today is a Wednesday. It is September the 11th. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being you, and I just wanted to say, once again, in case you didn't catch it on the first round, it is September 11th, and we all know what that date kind of means. There's a weight to that date now, mainly because of those attacks that happened on September 11th in 2001. I believe we're all familiar with them. If not, I'm just going to give you a brief run through. First off, I just want to say a big shout out to all the first responders, to the victims, to the people on the airplanes, to anybody whose life was drastically affected by these attacks. Shout outs to you, and shout outs to your families, and thank you for your sacrifices, and thank you for being the human beings that you are. So, just getting that aside, the attacks on September 11th, I remember when they happened, I was in 7th grade, I believe. I was maybe about 13. I remember like the world stopped, school stopped. I remember being in the lunchroom and talking with some kids, and one of them mentioned this attack that happened. Like this plane crash. They didn't say attack. It was like a plane crashed into something, I heard. And I was like, what? And then as soon as we got into the home, our homeroom, everybody was told, quiet down, the TV was on, and the first World Trade Center was on fire. It was burning. It was like the plane had already crashed into it, and nobody knew what to do except to just hold their breath, basically. It was insane. It was one of those moments in history and time in the world that changed changed the course of what humans were doing at the time. That's for fucking sure. So these September 11th attacks took place 18 years ago, between roughly about 8:46 a.m. and 10:28 a.m. The targets were originally the World Trade Center buildings, the Pentagon, the White House, or the U.S. Capitol, which was the failed one. So they reckon there was a number of participants, 19 to give that kind of a rough estimate, and they immediately pointed the fingers at Al-Qaeda. Just to kind of briefly give you the rundown, there's the 4 passenger airliners operated by the by the 2 U.S. airlines, United Airlines and American Airlines. All of which departed in northeastern United States, bound for San Francisco or Los Angeles. So basically, that was the idea. So they wanted to get one of the longest flights they could. So the planes had the most fuel on them, so they could turn them around and all that fuel would, burn. It's two of the planes, the American Airlines Flight 11 and United Airlines Flight 175, were crashed into the north and south towers of the World Trade Center complex, and that was in the Manhattan, New York. Obviously, that was the most. Those are probably the most infamous shots, are the New York shots. They're devastating, man. Fucking devastating. Within an hour and 42 minutes, both the towers had collapsed. Which there's just a recent study done, and I'm not really getting too much into this, but there's a recent study done that kind of shows that those those buildings didn't collapse due to the plane crashes, basically. Anyway, I'm just throwing that out there into the ether. Debris and resulting fires caused a partial or complete collapse of all the other buildings of the World Trade Center complex, including the 47-story 7 World Trade Center tower, as well as other damage to 10 other local and surrounding areas. Shoutouts to Evil L, shoutouts to Yellow T, shoutouts to Uncaged, Mooner6, Castle Roll, Harrison Hannon, shoutouts to anybody listening, and once again, shoutouts to any victims of these attacks or the resulting world that happened after these attacks. Shoutouts to everybody, I guess. Everybody gets a shout out this episode. The whole fucking human species gets a shout out this time. A third plane, Airlines Flight 77, was crashed into the Pentagon in Arlington, Virginia, which led to a partial collapse of the building's west side. The fourth plane, which was aiming for the Capitol, which was United Airlines Flight 93, was crashed into a field in Stony Creek Township, which is near Shanksville, Pennsylvania. And that was after the efforts of passengers on the planes to try to overtake it. So, that's no joke. That takes a lot of courage, kudos to those people, not that they're listening. Either way, so the September 11th attacks, they took about, just to round it up, they took about 3,000 fucking lives, right? In all total. So these 4 plane crashes, it could have been more devastating, which is also true, but what I think is also worth talking about is the result of these attacks. So immediately, Al-Qaeda was blamed. The United States responded by launching the War on Terror, which is technically still going on. Let's not forget that. The United States launched the War on Terror and invaded Afghanistan mainly to go after the Taliban, right? Which we first didn't even associate with Al-Qaeda. I can't remember how that worked. Remember, I was 13 at the time. I'm not 13 anymore, obviously. So we went after the Taliban, which is not Al-Qaeda, which we blamed Al-Qaeda for the attacks. Yes, and infamously, obviously, Osama bin Laden. So, which I want to shout out Barack Obama. He was the sitting president when we finally took out Osama bin Laden. So shout-outs to him, and I wish I could get a name on the person who actually killed the motherfucker. You know what I mean? Because he just seemed like a dickhead. Osama bin Laden, I'm just gonna say it. He just seemed like a dickhead. Whether he was actually responsible or not, he just seemed dickish. I'm just gonna say it. Look at his face. Look at his eyes. Seemed like an asshole. So Osama bin Laden, he's dead now. But we demanded that he was extradited from the country and that Afghanistan expelled Al-Qaeda, right? Which didn't fucking happen. Basically what we did was we went over there and just fucked a bunch of shit up and created a power vacuum, right? by taking out just as many leaders and as many random forces and then moving into Iraq. And we don't even need to talk about Iraq necessarily. But I remember what the world was like right after 9/11. And there are kids who definitely don't know. Podcasts weren't even a thing really when 9/11 happened. So there are definitely kids and people that don't know what the world felt like right afterward, and it was thick. It was, shout out to Casserole, extra thick. The anti-Muslim rhetoric skyrocketed. Toby Keith had a fucking song about going over to put a boot in your ass because it's the American way, and that, we were gonna go over there and basically tear somebody a fucking new one. Like, what it felt like was the United States got hurt, and we decided to lash out at anybody we thought looked like the fucking people that attacked us. We went over and decided to fuck with a bunch of countries because they're oil rich, they're Muslim, and we needed to start an endless fucking war. Because if you go to the Wikipedia for the September 11th attacks, in the first little blurb, the very end of it kind of reminds you of something. And it just says, as a consequence of the attacks, the United States of America has been in a state of national emergency ever since 2001. Let that fucking sink in for a second. We've been scared, and we've been told to be afraid and to be wary, and we've had TSA's fingers up our asses, and we have been hating a faceless enemy for so long, since 2001. I hope you all go out there and have a good day. I agree that never forgetting is a good idea, because you shouldn't forget big events in your past. And we are living in a post-9/11 world, which means that the world fucking changed since September 11th, 2001. Changed hard. I hope you all have a good day. Go out there, use your brains for good. Because every day is a good day to ripen up your coconut. Some people are not here to ripen up their coconut with us. So rest in peace to them. And you know what they say. Keep your stick on the ice.